There, you can't say do a barrel roll, but there are some iconic voice clips, right?
I know exactly. I thought about this for days ahead of this. I need to hear McKenna say, "Good luck."
Good luck.
Nice.
Flipped.
Yeah.
Clean.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Flashback 64. Or I guess in this case, it should be like Super Flashback or Flashback Super, something like that.
Flashback 64 FX.
Yes, we've got the special chip for this one. I'm Gooey, and I'm joined by McKenna, as always.
Hello.
And we've got returning guests. We've got IdolismJ. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, I butted into the intro a little early. Get my bit in, but I'm doing great.
Gotta get your shit in.
I get my shit in, dog.
We also got Corr. What's up, buddy?
Hello. Good to be back.
It's good having you both here. This is kind of a unique episode because normally, we're talking about N64 games chronologically, but we've reached Star Fox 64. And for a lot of games that we've covered, even if we haven't done episodes on them, if there's some kind of like precursor or something like that, we like to go back and like kind of research and play some of the games or maybe replay games, whatever, what have you. So I thought it'd be fun to spend more time talking about Star Fox because it's such an awesome, iconic series. Like, it doesn't do it justice really to do one. We could do like multiple episodes on Star Fox itself. It's a classic. So today we're going to get into and talk about the predecessor to Star Fox 64, the games on the Super Nintendo. And we'll probably talk about Star Fox in general here. But I guess before we even really, go into and talk about the games, Jay and Connor, maybe Connor, if you want to start first, like you both, put down on the list of N64 games you'd be willing to talk about as Star Fox. So I was just wondering, like, you're obviously probably like previously a fan of this series. Like, what was your journey with the Star Fox series? Just getting into it in general.
Well, I mean, I think it's the best game that's on the console for sure. Easily Star Fox 64 is the best Nintendo 64 game. And I had the game early on. I mean, when I was a little guy, I can remember throwing around all the quotes and everything. But I just never played a game that was, I think, like that. It was a little too young for the arcade scene, but this has that arcadey style gameplay, and it just, it had been a totally rewiring of my brain to experience a game that encourages you to kind of beat it several times over and try to get the best score. You're kind of encouraged to go through the whole game in one sitting.
Yeah. So was Star Fox 64 for you like your entry point into the series?
It was, yeah. I didn't actually end up playing, I don't think, the Super Nintendo ones until a little bit later.
Okay. Jay, how about you? Like, how did you get into playing these games?
I might have played SNES Star Fox 1 before I played 64, but it would have been close. It would have been real close. But 64 was like one of the iconic N64 games that I grew up on, like one of the early games. And I don't know how else to phrase this, but other than like the iconic Nintendo first party bangers that were on the N64. Like Nintendo's trick is, so what if second and third party isn't there?
Right.
We're bringing in the guns for the first party, and like it was one of those.
That was kind of where it started, I feel like, too, because you had a lot of people like not doing games for N64 previously. So
we've only
didn't want to do cartridges
Final Fantasy
anymore.
7 on this podcast like a number of times.
Yeah, pretty much, and it is really like there's other games we've played so far that have been really great, but it is like pretty wild playing Star Fox 64 like after having played some previous games and being like this is polished like on a whole other level like compared to a lot of the games we've played early on. I didn't really play it much at the time, Star Fox. I think I was really I'm sure a lot of people are like this. Like Smash was where I became kind of more familiar with like just the characters and stuff like that, because they had some playable ones in Smash and then Melee. But it wasn't until I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think actually on Melee they had, where you could play, was it Melee or Brawl? It was on Brawl, Smash Brawl, where you could play like demos of some previous games. Like they'd let you play like they'd let you play like Ocarina of Time or something for like 5 minutes or something like that.
Brawl? Yeah. I don't remember that. I mean, by Brawl, I was so fighting game pilled that I only played games for like the competitive aspect of it. So like I did the Subspace Emissary once in Brawl, and then like I'm like, hey, I'm here to play against humans. But I've always been that way. I know it's not in Melee, but if it's in Brawl, I think it was judgment to say one way or another.
And that was around the age for me where it was like, oh, it's time to like, like I became like even more curious about like the history of a lot of these like iconic, I was a big Nintendo fan, so a lot of these iconic or less so franchises, but I guess Star Fox was one that I kind of never really played. And then, I played them and liked them, but it wasn't really, honestly, until like a few months ago, Connor, where you and I played some on your SNES Classic together, where I was like really, and I think too just your enthusiasm and stuff, but that was like where I was really like starting to get into the games, and I kept playing them on Switch. And then now, like, once we started getting into the territory of like preparing for the show, with these games and the Nintendo 64, where I was like, oh, I'm fully on board. I love Star Fox. I don't know why, like I didn't really get into it quite yet, but I think you haven't really played any Star Fox before, right?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
First time playing.
You didn't.
All of them.
You didn't know like what it was really gonna be either, right?
No. Not really.
I think you had heard of Star Fox.
I had heard
Adventures,
of it, yeah.
And so you thought it was gonna be like Zelda.
Well, that I think I knew that like they started out as, or I guess most of them are just like flying shooters.
Yeah. Like, well, why don't? So we can kind of talk about both the games, like crisscrossed and with later games too, if you feel like there doesn't have to be strict, but we have kind of we've got our classic McKenna descriptions of the game. In the spirit of our regular show, I also prepared a little a smaller flashback segment for the release of the original Star Fox.
Oh,
let's set the stage. Let's go back. Let's talk about March 22nd, 1993 was when it came out. The song Informer by Snow it was a 7-week run at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. This was the most banging song anybody had ever heard. For 3 weeks, the number 1 album was Eric Clapton Unplugged, which is like, who cares? It's all about snow. I don't care about Eric Clapton. The old people are buying the album.
We don't need to pit two kings against one another.
Oh, no. For 2 weeks in a row, the number 1 movie was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3.
Okay, you said 3. I thought you were saying
3,
but I haven't. You saw 3. I saw you were watching 3.
We did a speed run of them, yeah. And this was Turtles were pretty powerful at the time. Even we were reading in Nintendo Power, like people were going nuts for Turtles in Time and stuff. So Turtle Mania,
banger.
Even though Turtles 3 isn't, the pinnacle, this was a good time for the Turtles.
How many people out there in the world got Big Apple 3 a.m. tattooed on their forearm somewhere?
I have other games from the time. There was actually, I thought this was kind of fun, released right around maybe in the same day, was a game called Star Wars X-Wing. And it was also, I haven't played it really, but it is also a space combat, X-Wing game.
What platform is that?
Yeah, that was a PC one where,
Yeah.
I believe it was Star Wars X-Wing, huh? Maybe I'm not.
From 1993.
I would have, so somewhere around 1994 or 1995, I would have had a PC Star Wars shareware collection.
Oh.
I don't know how else to describe it, but it was like, and I mean, I could be getting my dates wrong because it just does. It had a number of Star Wars games from the 90s, and it was just their demo discs, and it was like its own black plastic case, and so it had a bunch of things. It probably had X-Wing on there, but like I played it for Dark Forces and Dark Forces 2.
Oh yeah, those are sweet.
But I remember it had like at least 3 other ones that I would expect that X-Wing was on there.
It could, very well could have been. I think, there's a lot of, I guess we could talk about it more in the episode, but there's some parallels obviously between the two. Another game that came out around the time was Kirby's Adventure. Connor, this wasn't the same month, but I pulled this aside. It was interesting. I go to different sources where I'm like, what happened at this time? There's some different websites I look at. The obvious one is I look at like Wikipedia 1993 in video games, and this popped up, and I was like, they didn't have many events listed, but I thought that this was amazing that they picked this out as like one of their dozen events that were big in the year, and it was the first Funko-Land location on May 11th. Opens in McHenry County, Illinois, in Crystal Lake, bringing the chain's total number of locations to 62.
Wow, that's wild. What an extraordinary event. Slow news day, I guess.
Do they still talk about that in Crystal Lake?
The Funko Land from the 60-second location. Yeah, now it's just but a legend.
Remember back when Funko was a word that you associated with positively?
Yeah, I used to be a land. Now it's just a shitty little guy.
From Grenoble, in the French Alps, weighing 476 pounds, the 8th wonder of the world, Andre the Giant.
Andre the Giant is inducted into the WWF Hall of Fame, the illustrious organization.
If I remember correctly, Vince McMahon made the Hall of Fame specifically so he could induct Andre in. Like that was he was like the first.
He was like the first inductee.
Yeah,
right?
It was like they made the Hall of Fame to induct Andre.
It's a weird Hall of Fame, but definitely shout out to Andre the Giant.
Definitely work for Andre.
At the same time, the Intel Pentium processor was released, so computers. Technology.
This symbol outside says inside you'll find a legacy of technological leadership and the Intel Pentium processor for the next generation of compatible power.
So we've set the stage fairly well. 1993. I don't really remember it very well, but
I have a quick 1993 story because I do mildly remember 1993 only because that's when my parents were building their house. And so my dad had a picture of me on like a little, I wouldn't call it like a toddler potty kind of thing because I was 3 at the time, so I might have been a little bit bigger than that. But it was a construction zone, so I had no other choice. And he had a picture of that, and for a billion years, he's held on to that picture as something he's cherished. So last year when I finished constructing my basement bathroom down here, he got me a blown up and framed picture of me on the little toddler potty to put above my toilet in my bathroom. So I know what 1993 looks like because I have the picture of it like right over there.
You're looking at it every day. That's
right. Every stinking day, man.
I remember exactly 2 things from 1993. One is I got a dog. I don't exactly remember it, but I feel like I was 3 years old, and I think that memory like imprinted on me. Just the feeling of like getting a dog.
The childlike wonder associated with owning a puppy.
Our weird like accordion door thing we had opened up, and out came a little puppy, and I'd never, just couldn't believe it. And then also going to Six Flags Great America. I remember that. Let's talk about Star Fox.
All right.
McKenna, tell us about it.
Star Fox is a rail shooter where you play as Fox McCloud and control a fighter spacecraft while leading your team to fight the evil scientist Andros and his forces. You'll make your way through the Lilat solar system by navigating through a series of levels, avoiding obstacles, destroying enemy ships, and collecting power-ups. At the end of each level, you'll have to defeat the enemy leader. There are 3 courses to choose from, each with a different difficulty level, all of which start on your home planet of Corneria and end at Venom, the planet where Andros has set up base.
Well, you mentioned it right away. I thought this was interesting when we were playing it, Connor. You've been getting into rail shooters lately.
Yeah.
Is that a recent thing? Is that
well,
due to Star Fox?
There's not very many of them. Pretty much before Star Fox, they had Space Harrier. If you guys are familiar with that game, big game, arcade game. They ported it to several consoles. But you're a little guy on a jetpack shooting and stuff. That I think was a huge influence on this one. And then after this, they had like Panzer Dragoon, and that's about it. I mean, like it's kind of similar to like it. It reminds me of like light gun games or something, you know, because those are also on rails technically, but it's a unique kind of genre.
Yeah, it's not one that I think I mean I've played a little bit of like Space Harrier and stuff, but not like enough where I play it for a little bit, I die, and I'm like, oh, like let's move on. But then that's even how Star Fox was for me for a while. Like, oh, that's cool, but not really getting deep into it. Jay, how about you? Like, was that when you played? I mean, did you think about it like that at the time, or was it like it's just like, oh, it's a game where you fly around in a ship?
So I was more arcade heavy, so it does have a distinct rail shooter light gun feel to it, which I was able to graph onto it. Like it is, they're both on rails kind of thing. And I'm a big light gun guy. I love light gun rail shooters. That's like a huge part of my personality from my arcade days. So I think it was pretty easy to take the DNA of Star Fox and graph that onto like, hey, you're on rails and you're shooting. The mechanics are a little different, but it's what's going on. Because like in America, you're not seeing a whole lot of shmups, which is what this would more directly graph onto. Like,
oh yeah.
I wasn't playing Raiden until a little bit later in life, and I think I rented Tiger Heli for the NES a handful of times, maybe once actually, because to this day I'm still like not the best relationship with shmups, but like it would be the melding of a shmup and a rail, like a light gun rail shooter.
The arcadeness is something I really started to pick up on while playing this game over and over.
I do think this game is unique from a lot of other shmups too, because not only is the perspective different, but also the way it handles difficulty I think is a lot different. Usually in most shmups you'll see things like different lives or different amounts of bombs or what have you. But this game kind of has a more, with the choose your path kind of deal. And I like how it doesn't immediately alert you as well to what the easy or hard or difficult path is. It makes it feel almost like a more sandboxy in a way.
Yeah, I do like that. And even like some of the levels you play, like you could play some, like the starting level is different. No matter, like if it's interesting that like it's completely different. It's not just like, hey, there's like more damage is done. It's like you're playing almost a totally different, not totally different, but you know what I mean? Like different sets of levels, bosses and stuff like that. They changed the vibe of some of the levels you do replay. I think that's really stands out as unique.
Connor, what you brought up immediately fired something off my brain, because when it comes to light gun games, I would mark diverging paths as being like super important from House of the Dead 1, which was like 1996, and that kind of took influence from Virtua Cop and the way you could just choose your level at the very beginning, and that's 1994. So like Star Fox was kind of ahead of that curve by a noticeable bit by having that way of like your level choices equal your difficulty.
In terms of that style of gameplay, like what was your sort of reaction to it? Because you had never really have you played many games like it, and like what did you think of it, Star Fox?
Probably the closest is just like stuff we've played at the arcade. Like we played some on rails stuff at the arcade. Somewhat like Shadows of the Empire.
Yeah, some of the space battles for sure. That's what's interesting is like there are like reaching towards like, and you can see them. They do it in the later ones, like wanting to have like a big open. I think that was actually what they envisioned it like at first, but then they were like, well, if we keep it on rails, like we can kind of structure this better. So it ends up being like kind of halfway between like an on rails arcade game and then like where I guess what they do with some of the later entries where they open it up a
all
little bit
range
more.
mode.
All range mode activated. Did you enjoy Star Fox in that similar way of some of those games, or like how did you feel actually playing Star Fox?
To me, the most interesting parts were like the end of the level when you'd be fighting the enemy leader.
Yeah.
You know, there were some points where I was like, all right, this is getting a little repetitive because I was just like mashing the barrel roll and shooting and
yeah,
trying not to run into things. I ran into things a lot.
When we started playing together, it like seeing you start playing reminded me of when like Connor and I were playing months prior, passing it back and forth, and I just like at first could not do it, you know, and so I was just like getting like almost dying right away, and I was like, oh, what you know, what am I supposed to do?
I kept like wanting to move out of the way of things instead of like, you know, tilting, you know, the R-wing.
Tilting and barrel rolling, and there is a lot of like subtleties to the game that like
for sure. Imagine how hard it was for gamers in 1993 who had never seen polygons like that before.
Yeah,
I mean, a big thing about this game too that you kind of can't avoid talking about is it was really a big tech demo too. It was, you know, Nintendo trying to show off 3D, you know, assets on a Super Nintendo. And I mean, I think one of the most interesting parts about the Super Nintendo too is the story of that development is so interesting. I think with, you know, one of the major programmers, Dylan Cuthbert, was 18 when Nintendo brought him on, and they brought him on because his company was working on Game Boy games. Actually, unofficially, they were able to, because they didn't think they weren't a big enough company that they thought Nintendo would give them a development kit, so they were able to circumvent ways around it. I think the way they tricked it was to get rid of the, you know, when the logo comes down on the Game Boy, if you take that part out, they're able to mess with the ROMs somehow. But so they were so impressed by them having 3D assets. If you guys are familiar with the game X, that came out a year before Star Fox, and that was like the prototype, really. And it was being made kind of unofficially. Nintendo brings them on board. They're like, hey, why don't you guys, we'll release this game for real. And of course, it was Nintendo's idea to call it X, which is one of their, every time they're working with other developers, they give them like terrible ideas. I mean, X has got to be the worst name for a video game of all time.
But it's a good name for a website, at least.
Yeah. But he was 18 years old, and they bring him on. He's working with Shigeru Miyamoto to work on this new property. I mean, crazy. I think you know, it's hard to imagine now that they would do something like that. Some superstar programmer that they bring out there, you know, as a teenager.
Yeah, X. I actually watched like an interview with Dylan Cuthbert where they were like playing it and interviewing him about it, and it looks so amazing. Like it's still really impressive for a Game Boy game. Yeah, and like actually like there's a lot of DNA in it for Star Fox. Like they clearly they like took things from it, and that's kind of cool across like within that and the Star Fox game of like them kind of keep remixing ideas in the games and like things they wanted to do to like
because I mean that's ultimately what happens. I mean, you don't want to get too far ahead, but that's ultimately what happens with Star Fox 64 when Star Fox 2 gets scrapped too. A lot of the ideas and the DNA in Star Fox 64
but it still is different. It's like each one has its own kind of unique thing.
I think that's the not to go too far ahead, but also to bring it back. The thing that's the most interesting about Star Fox 64 is how it is another run at Star Fox 1 and 2. And that's not something Nintendo normally does. Like Nintendo's Nintendo's like ethos has always been like, if we don't have a good idea for something, we're not going to do it. Read why we don't have another F-Zero game. But Star Fox 64 was like, hey, we have a buttload more horsepower. Let's do another Star Fox 1, add in what we scrapped from 2, and like we can do this again and it'll be crazy. Because all the things, like almost all the things you think of in Star Fox 64, they're there in Star Fox 1. Like boosting and braking, which is insane to think about, that you have ways to adjust your movement on the rail in the SNES version. It's so forward thinking, and it's incredible that they were able to pull that off. The game maybe runs at 17 frames per second when you do it, but like it's there and it's working as intended.
Well, and that's why I think it was justified for the Nintendo 64 to remake it, because I think they were in some ways. I mean, they were so ahead of the curve, but also that's also kind of what killed Star Fox, is that now they just keep remaking the same. They just keep making that first game endlessly.
Yeah, so. They always make the first game, and then like we got Waggle or motion controls or the tablet or something, and I'm like, what? You guys are chasing the same thing. It's like,
I did play that one on the Wii U, and I couldn't finish it.
Was that
it
Star Fox like, Zero? Was it?
Yeah, where you had cockpit view on the gamepad, the Wii U gamepad, and then like non-cockpit view on the screen, but like you could not aim good enough if you weren't looking at cockpit view, but you couldn't see what you were doing if you weren't looking at the screen, and it was like it did not. I was like, just put a reticule on the screen, please. Like, just make it so I could look in the cockpit if I want. But that's neither here nor. But maybe other people didn't struggle with it like I did.
It's only here or there, because in Star Fox 1 there was no freaking reticule.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I did honestly with the sometimes. Like, it's super impressive. It looks amazing. I think it's like such a cool game visually. Both of these are. Yeah. But there are times where it's a little hard to tell what's going on, and then the frame rate it is a little tough sometimes, and that made it hard. Like, especially first getting into it, to sort of like start getting like decent at it. But that was like a thing that it was like a minor like adjust, like I almost had like, I guess I hadn't like I picked up on sort of like the vibe of the game, the like feel of it, and I the frame rate and stuff like that, it becomes less of a I used to become more used to it.
You acclimate to 17 frames per second pretty fast. I think the only things that like actually still bring Star Fox 1 down is barrel rolling is really gummy for some reason. Like
it can be.
It is hard to get like a right or a left to fire off a barrel roll for some strange reason. And then like the idea of perspective is not always easy to parse, and so you go to like dodge something or pick something up and you're not really there, and it's kind of hard to figure that out. But like other than those two things, that game is way playable. Like that game is way better than it should be.
Yeah, it feels really good to play, I think, still. Like, despite what I was just saying, like now, like, and it didn't take me. I haven't been playing this game for a very long time, and now it's like it feels good to play. Like
it's like when you put your feet into a cold pool, and you're gonna
and
you're like, oh, that's cold, but then like 5 minutes later, you're like, oh, I don't even notice anymore.
So you mentioned the backstory of it a little bit with the development counter, but then also when it came to this, then when they're developing it, like they had this whole thing, they're advertising it all over. It's great advertisement, that Super FX chip that they had to have to make it run. But that's legit, like the game, and they had to put this in each cartridge, which I don't know much about the tech side of games, but even
it was the most expensive game ever created at that point.
Yeah. And I mean, this is kind of a side thing, were they were charging regular retail price for it, right? Like,
I believe so. I think that's part of why it was so expensive for them.
That's what's kind of crazy to me, because like now I think of we haven't gotten to the expansion pack or whatever on the N64, but like
Donkey Kong 64, that cost a fortune to have to bundle that.
Yeah, I remember like having to buy that separately for some. I don't remember if I got that or if I got Majora's Mask first, that also required, or Perfect Dark I had too. But like it was like kind of rough. Like, I guess I wasn't fully buying my own games at that time, but it was still kind of like, oof, we got to get this whole other like we don't even know what this is. But the fact that like they just had to put one of these, you know, in every cartridge and probably sell for the same, I think that's kind of impressive.
Yeah.
But it did, like, yeah, the game has a really cool vibe and like art style to it. You mentioned like the bosses. I think the boss like they came up with a lot of like really creative stuff in the look of everything, but in the bosses in particular, of like, I don't know, making them look really cool when they have like, they're kind of like very simplistic polygonal shapes.
They have limited resources.
Yeah, they did a lot with only being able to have flat colored polygons.
Yeah, like every I don't know, every like screenshot or anything of the game looks like just like a really cool abstract painting, you know.
Speaking of artwork, I had the poster from the Nintendo Power that was promoting Star Fox, because Star Fox 1 was promoted with them as like almost puppets, anthropomorphic Star Fox and animal friends. And so they were like, there was like a tactile like fur to them. They were, I think they did, I don't know if they did, but I assume they did like actual mock-ups of like.
It's on the cover of the game, or that was on the box of the game too.
Yeah, and so like the Nintendo Power poster was a full fold-out version of that with Fox and the rest of the crew. And it is something that is kind of lost when we get to 64 because they have the polygons to represent that. But it was really cool to have that like 80s kids movie kind of Dark Crystal, Jim Henson looking Star Fox crew.
I think it's really an allusion to, I know we were talking about Thunderbirds the other day. I think that's the actual, Miyamoto has referenced Thunderbirds as being a huge influence on this game, especially the way that, even in the game, the way they move the ba kind of deal. You know, they look like puppets in the game too. But yeah, that promotional campaign, I think that's what they were going for. It's awesome. They did bring the puppets back a little bit later at some point for some commercials, but yeah, like
it might have been the Star Fox Zero commercials. They might have brought those in, or they were new puppets, but they don't look as good as the older ones, in my opinion, actually. But that is what gives it such a like standout style, and I think that's like Nintendo has certain games where they do that, and it reminds me of you mentioned like kind of the like it having this sort of like handmade quality, or like you could see the actual fur on it. Like it reminds me of some other Nintendo games where they kind of pick an art style like that, like even in like that Link's Awakening remake, they made the characters look like these little figures, or I don't know, even like some of those like you know, like the Yoshi games or whatever.
So say the Wii U, like Epic Yarn, Woolly World.
Yeah, or like you see like they give it this like realistic texture of something that's, I don't know.
Corneria is a real place. You can visit it, and there are a bunch of furries just walking around.
Midwest Fur Fest. This Corneria? Let's go!
The Thunderbirds. We watched a little bit of it too. That game, and that has that same thing where like I was watching it, and I like looking at all the details of like the sets and like the models they used in that and stuff, and I could totally see like that, why that's you know, like Nintendo does come in and like they can give games like dumb names or whatever, but there are certain like times where they really nail like specific like aesthetics they're going for, like type of experience they're going for. Like it was so pristine.
I mean, yeah, they did come up with Slippy Toad, who's one of the greatest characters in all video games.
Oh, for sure. That was my main in Star Fox 2.
The heart and soul of the Star Fox team.
Star Fox 1. Anything else? Oh, the music is also really awesome. Got to give a shout out to the music in that. The Corneria theme is iconic for sure.
It's been getting stuck in my head all the time. I'm humming it all the time.
Yeah, the music is so good. I always forget about that too, because it's such an awesome game. But yeah, the music is undeniable.
Who did the music for the SNES Star Fox? Do we know that? I should have actually.
I can tell Connor's clicking up. So I almost want to mention my one thing about the music in Star Fox 1 in general is like the first level of that game gives a certain like anime Macross.
Oh
vibe.
yeah.
That when you have that, because like normally when we think of Star Fox, we think of it as interplanetary space fighters. They always leave whatever the mothership's called.
Mm-hmm.
The Great Fox, I think it is.
Okay, yeah.
Like,
the Great Fox.
The first level of Star Fox, when they fire out from underground and you see the wireframe of them flying out.
Oh yeah.
Like that's big, like Macross, or Robotech mecha vibes, paired perfectly with the Corneria theme. Like it's very striking to me how anime that kind of sounds. And then after that, it gets more militaristic theme. Like I hear more Military March in the soundtrack, but like that first opening bit, it does give off that excitement that is why mecha is so beloved.
Yeah, they take that further. They give you a mech in the next one. But yeah, just to go off of what you're saying too, like just to flying around, like we already kind of talked about the aesthetic having this kind of cool abstract. It's almost like it's this abstract feeling, but like flying around Corneria itself does kind of give it that vibe too. It's like this like very, I guess, like that vibe you're talking about. And it's like a very 90s sort of take on it, I feel like too. I think maybe just because the game looks exactly like a game from the early 90s, but yeah, I love that. The composer for this game, I don't know if I'm familiar. Hajime Hirasawa? I don't
Unfamiliar as far as
okay, I did want to say, because I know like Star Fox 64, like Koji Kondo had was I think the main composer on
They brought in the big guns.
Yeah, but there are some there's some really awesome songs in this. I just wanted to again mention, like, taking the different routes gives you very unique settings and bosses and stuff like that. I love how you go one way and you're gonna be in like an ice level that you wouldn't get in the other way, and there's all these there's different secrets and stuff like that. I never pulled off any of the like secret paths, but I always thought that was pretty cool. I always appreciate that. Like maybe when I this is my initial playthrough of the game, maybe I'm gonna play it more. Maybe I'll dive into that stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's a game that really demands replays. It's a very replayable game for sure.
Any final words on Star Fox itself?
Yeah, Andross is the easy final boss.
Yeah,
that dude's a chump. The Spider Walker before him was way harder. Yeah, McKenna knows. Real recognize real. I know McKenna's out there struggling with the Spider Walker, and then she gets to Andross, and she's like, "Man, it's fucking clown hour. I got this."
That you reminded me of something. There are a couple like enemies / bosses and stuff where, like I don't initially. I think I die a lot too because I and this is true across a lot of games where I'm like, I'm not sure what the thing to do to them is, even upon studying them. There's a couple where I'm like, I'm not sure, is like shooting this like hurting it? You know what I mean? Like
the Spider
that's
Walker
the one that
in
really
particular is the one where it's like, what am I actually doing here? Like I can kind of parse it out, and then like that also kind of feeds back into the perspective of the game is not the easiest to tell where you are in the relation to the enemy, because sometimes it'll like spin attack high or spin attack low, and it's not great trying to figure out if it's going high or low. But you can also still chalk that up to it's incredibly impressive they made this in the first place.
Yeah, it's so impressive. I'm trying there's they have, I think just even the voices and stuff is also really cool.
Oh God, the voice samples they have for the SNES are like crystal clear.
It sounds really good.
It's unbelievable that they got the little voice clips to sound that hearable is what I want to say. And for some reason I want to think that this the voice clips should sound like they're coming out of the backside of an Apple II or something, but like you can hear everyone say a thing in the SNES game, and I'm like, man, does the SNES really have that? Holy shit.
I think what was also really cool about it was that they had unique voice clips for each member of the Star Fox team that really kind of give you a sense of their personality and match the animal that they were with. It was all well designed.
The team itself is just a cool aspect of the game. the like they kind of, it is cool they're able to get across like these different personalities, and yeah, they match the animal, and you get a real sense of the characters, even though like there's really not much dialogue really with them.
You got the grizzled vet, you got the rebel. They fit all the archetypes, and so that's how they're able to do so much with so little. I do
just in like, what do you think about like the Star Fox world? There's not really much like lore going on, but I do think it's pretty cool.
I did think it was cool to like finally see these characters that I've mostly heard about as like the Majora's Mask Easter egg, where they have the like Star Fox.
Oh yeah, they do.
Masks.
There's a mask for each animal.
Masks.
Yeah. I'm like, now I can like place a mask to a character.
Yeah, this one, like with them, most of the dialogue is like, it's just like they all kind of say the same thing to you, but they say it in a different way, and I think that's cool how they pull that off.
Yeah, it's just it's a simple way of showing their personality, and it works. That's all I can ask.
And they
for.
Definitely keep that going throughout the series. Now let's talk about something that never came out. So I don't have a flashback. I considered like flashing back to like whatever 2017 or whatever when, but I didn't bother.
Nah, it's a cute idea though. I like the pitch.
But the game, let's first McKenna will set the stage for Star Fox 2.
Star Fox 2 is the cancelled sequel to Star Fox, which was eventually released in 2017 on the SNES Classic. The game plays similarly to the original Star Fox, but with new game modes and elements, as well as the ability to choose between 6 playable characters. Instead of proceeding through a linear set of levels, you can move freely on the map screen toward planets and enemy ships. You'll have to keep a close eye on enemy ships and missiles because they move when you do. The Star Fox team will need to manage their time spent reclaiming occupied territory and protecting Corneria from incoming attacks. While the game retains some on-rails segments like its predecessor, it also adds sections where you can fly around freely. Fight against Andross and the Starwolf team to once again save the Lilat system.
Yeah, so it's kind of surprising. Like it's like in a way very similar, but it's also like a huge departure from the last game.
Yeah,
like
it playing 2, like once you finally sit down and play 2, because you kind of said it came out in 2017. That's when it officially came out. That's when it was like officially recognized as out as part of the SNES Classic. Which, by the way, what a crazy little piece of technology. That thing's awesome.
I wish I had
and the
one.
fact that they threw the Star Fox 2 on there, yeah, it's one of my favorite little Nintendo releases. I love that thing. But the ROM for Star Fox 2 has been out previous to that, so it has been playable, but that was the first official time. And playing Star Fox 2, it's very funny how like it completely fills the gap between Star Fox 1 and Star Fox 64, because once you play 2, you're like, oh, here's everything that they took from 2 that they added on top of 1, and that's what gets you Star Fox 64. Like Star Fox 64, maybe this is a mean thing to say to it, but like Star Fox 64 doesn't really have new ideas. It is just taking Star Fox 1 and strapping on some of the cooler ideas from Star Fox 2 and then making that game in real 3D this time.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's all they needed.
At that time,
but
that is kind of all they need.
Yeah.
But it's kind of sad too, because they sacked the entire development team of Star Fox 2. They did not collaborate with Argonaut Studios, a lot of the developers who helped make Star Fox 2. When they made Star Fox 64, they kind of stole a lot of the ideas and got credit for it, because I don't think that was the intention.
Yeah.
Obviously, they were embarrassed with like the PlayStation coming out and everything, and they didn't want to put out a 3D game that looked like that. I think that was really the motivator behind it. But even still, it's like now which I do think Star Fox 64 is probably a better game than Star Fox 2. They were working with different technology, but yeah, they get a lot of the credit that the people who made Star Fox 2 really deserved. And yeah, I was really excited when it got the official release. I had played the ROM before as well, but they even say that it was not, the ROMs that were leaked online were not the same build. Like this is the furthest build that they had. They said it was about 90%. They had gotten rid of a few bugs here and there. But I think even the development team has said that they were glad that the game finally got to see the light of day officially, even if it came a few years too late.
Yeah, I think that is wild though that it was so far into development, and as we can see, it's a great game, and it makes sense, when you look at the context. Jay, we talked in the last main episode about like companies trying to navigate the transition into 3D and like some of the business moves they made. We talked about how Midway made War Gods to burn a 3D fighting game for their 3D.
Yeah, because they didn't want to blow that on Mortal Kombat. They want to put a lamb out to slaughter before they throw their golden goose out in the third dimension.
And for Nintendo, it's like, oh man, this is gonna look weird.
Because as I'm playing Star Fox 2, I'm like, I could see why they shelved this. Like it's a really good game, but like I could see the reason why you might shelve this.
Yeah.
Like you might just not be happy with the way this thing finishes out, especially in the context of how Star Fox 1 was.
But it didn't really take much longer for Star Fox 64 to come. Like they were going to release it maybe in 1995, and then it's 2 years later, and we get Star Fox 64. I mean, I guess that is kind of a long time, but relatively speaking, like I don't know, the gap between like A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time or whatever is not too dissimilar.
What kids these days don't understand is that if you were playing video games in the 90s to about 2005, time moved differently.
Yeah.
Time moved way differently.
Yeah.
Nowadays, a game comes out after like 8 years of development. Back then, the bangingest game to this day that you've ever played was in development for like 8 months. And then that shit went out the door.
That was something I really discovered when we were covering Doom and reading about how like id Software was making a game a month or something like that.
Well, they had smaller teams and smaller development budgets. I mean, the budgets now are just out of control. That's a big reason for it.
Yeah, for sure. What was your like? How did you feel about playing Star Fox 2? I mean, we were doing these for you as like back to back, like two games you never even played ever.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. Like I love the like partial real time aspect to it.
That's wild too.
Yeah, which is missed in Star Fox 64 as well. I think that's like a cool. Yeah, there is like that RTS kind of thing going on.
It is an RTS game.
Yeah,
like in a very weird sense, it is an RTS.
And that's something. So they did not release this, but Dylan Cuthbert did go on to found a studio that worked with Nintendo and did make some other Star Fox games, and Star Fox Command they did, which I've never played, but apparently it incorporates that element because it's something he really thought was cool, and I did think that's cool. Like he says that's still his favorite Star Fox game.
He got to bring it back years later.
He actually got to, I don't know if you knew this, I found out about this in the research, but he got to do an X game for the DS, for DSware, like one of their.
Oh no!
Yeah,
that's cool.
It was like basically like a touchscreen, like sort of remake of X, but it's like more modern, and it's again like leaning into like the abstract look of it. It looked pretty neat, but
that's so cool.
Yeah. What like how else did you feel about playing it? You like the RTS? Like there was the. What did you think about like the all range mode compared to the on rails mode?
I do like the all range mode. It feels a little more natural to me, I guess.
If you run into something, it feels like more your fault, I guess.
Yeah,
because you're not like kind of being
like, oh, I did that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I don't think I quite got the hang of it as much as Star Fox, but
yeah,
I probably played Star Fox a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely want to play Star Fox 2 some more. I think it looks really good.
They took the style and like shined it up even more.
Like I'm like, wow,
the frame
this is beautiful.
Way better.
Frame rate's better.
The frame rate makes a huge difference.
Oh, big time.
I think they said the all range mode stuff in Star Fox 2 is actually a big influence on what became Super Mario 64 to bring it back to the Nintendo 64 here.
Yeah, I believe like Miyamoto was like all in on this. Like he was super stoked on, not on this game in particular, but like in all the interviews or like whatever like retrospectives I was reading, it was like, oh, he was like, we got to make a Mario game out of this.
Yeah,
it does feel like the all range stuff that happens in Star Fox 2 is maybe what they really wanted. In Star Fox 1 they couldn't get there all the way, because like once you and I like Star Fox 1 because the thing that we haven't really mentioned is like Star Fox 1 you see your ship like you would in Star Fox 64. In Star Fox 2, when you're dogfighting out in space, it's just a screen with the reticule on it. You actually don't see your R-wing, and you can't back out the way you could in Star Fox 1 and to just see the ship. It's all first person. And I personally don't care for that as much for the dogfights, but like it draws a direct line and I have to walk away from the mic to go find the game that I have to reference. Star Lancer? Yeah, so Star Lancer for the Dreamcast. It's a space dogfighting game. It's one of the ones I own. I liked it growing up. And, you know, it's a first-person space shooter. And it is exactly the same type of thing that Star Fox 2 was. Like,
wow.
It's exactly the same type of game. So I don't know what the PC era was doing when it comes to their, like, space sims. Because I know there were some like space dogfighting sims, but like what Star Fox 2 was able to pull off on the SNES is a genre of game that would continue for quite a while because people like space dogfighters. And if you like space dogfighters, like it's still a really good one.
That's wild you say that, because I think even in learning about Dylan Cuthbert, I think he went to work at Argonaut because he wanted to learn how to make 3D games, and he was inspired by one of their games, which I feel bad I can't remember, but it was named like Star something. So I like the continuing influence of, I guess, you know, after Star Wars, it's like really easy to name your thing Star something and it sounds sweet. We talked about like the different paths in the original game, but this has like different difficulty levels. But even within its own difficulty level, like I just played the game and beat it again today, I think just on easy again. And the way it all played out and everything was way different than like the last time I played it. Like I think having that RTS element and like things can slightly change depending on what you do, like does give, like I actually did worse, I think, playing it again this time. And like, I was like, how could this happen? You know, the other time I played it, like no missiles ever hit Corneria or whatever. I was perfectly fine on easy or whatever. But then this time, like, I think I went after the wrong ship or something happened, and all of a sudden, like, I got into a tight, you know, not that big of a bind, but like kind of a tight spot. And so I thought that was really cool that like even replaying like the same difficulty levels kind of can actually give you like a totally different set of outcome, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that they feel like they added more replayability onto 2, and I like the way difficulty works in that game maybe a little better, because I think easy mode in Star Fox 2 is like you can more or less like predict like, okay, I've got a couple missiles, you'll get a heads up that the carrier is going to attack, that's fine. When you play it on a higher difficulty, there's a lot more like RTS stuff going on. You're like, I gotta juggle trying to, you know, intercept these missiles. I gotta go take care of these carriers, and I think that works more to the game because I mentioned this. Like, I could see why maybe they shelved it. When you're playing Star Fox 2 for the Star Fox 2 stuff, it's not as exciting as the detailed rail shooter parts of Star Fox 1.
Yeah.
Like once you like that, when you go to a planet, because like again, things Star Fox 64 did, when you go to a planet in Star Fox 2, you gotta like all range mode for a little bit to kind of get some objectives, and then you go into a building and you blow up something. Well, once you've done that once, like that's the only thing you're doing for the rest of the planets. They're all very
the bosses
minor,
in there
but
aren't much different.
There's some cool variations on it, and it's also incredibly impressive that they pulled it off, but like they don't fundamentally change. So like all the levels are, I'm going to fly around, I'm going to get on the, and we haven't even talked about this yet, you do the landmaster.
I love that
turn
thing.
Your R-wing. It feels like that's the way to play the game. You going indoors in the buildings and flying the R-wing is a nightmare. You need to use the landmaster.
Yeah.
But like every level is press 2 switches with the landmaster, go in the building, take out a mini boss, take out the boss, and there's not a whole lot of variation to that, which is kind of a bummer. And to me, that's like, ooh, this kind of drags down Star Fox 2 a little bit, because it's a lot of similar repetition, whereas Star Fox 1 was like, every level's pretty damn exciting.
Yeah, like, yeah, it's same thing of like, oh, you gotta take down these missiles. You know, those kind of have, like, they do get a little repetitive. Though I guess you don't have to do too many of them, but... And I think some of that unpredictable element of like when the missiles are coming is pretty fun. But I get what you're saying. It feels like in Star Fox 64 they took like the best elements of both maybe and kind of combined them. Yeah. But to each game's own credit, I also do think of the first three Star Fox games, like each one has something about it that like stands as like something unique that is great, that like the other games like don't totally have. Sometimes it's minor, but when I'm playing Star Fox 2, one thing I do love is like, even though it's not that like you're usually one or the other, I love in those levels where you go like you can be flying and then you turn into like sort of the tank thing running around. And that's something that, you know, when you're playing Star Fox 64, you know, you get like a tank level or submarine level, which are really cool, but like I almost have a desire after playing Star Fox 2 for another game where like the whole game is just you're flying around and you're switching from the landmaster to ship and like whenever you want, and like they build the game around that. Like it's something that like, yeah, those levels are a little repetitive, but I almost want to see that sort of gameplay like built out more, because that's something that I don't know, that really carries the game for me, like, and makes those sections really fun. Is that I love that it's like, okay, time to go, you know, tank mode and run around now. Oh, I need to like get over there.
It's something unique.
Yeah, like turning into the ship to fly and then turning into the tank to land on a switch. I don't know, it's cool.
Sego, I'm sorry, I think I might have to split.
Connor, it was great to have you. So
yes, I was happy to do it. Thanks for letting me gab about the game.
All right, well, now that he's gone, we can really get into it.
No, he's gone. Yeah, love you, Connor.
I had a thought and I totally forgot what it was. We didn't talk about, you don't just have to play as Fox anymore. You got different.
Oh God, McKenna bringing in the important stuff.
Oh gosh,
here.
I thought about that.
You got characters with different spacecrafts. You know, they have different stats. So, you know, if you want a higher shield, you can pick your frog.
Yeah, I go for the ones where you get the shield replenishment because I'm not confident in my abilities, you know?
That's what I did. But I wanted to play. They have two totally new characters.
What were their names? I don't even remember.
Miyu and Fran.
Okay. That's a little like
I because we're all Midwesterners here. We can speak freely. I did radio for a number of years and I unlearned my Midwestern accent. So you do pronounce it Fran with like a Midwestern A, and my brain's like, don't do a Midwestern A, it's Fran. And I'm like, no, it's actually not Fran. It's Fran.
Hey, Fran.
But like that's Midwestern accent, and I viciously unlearnned that when I started doing broadcasting. Yeah,
no, it's still with me for sure.
Well, I'm not a real Midwestern.
You're not, yeah. You're in a coastal elite.
Oh my God, not one of us. Coastal elite. Don't you dare have me back on. I thought I was among friends here.
McKenna's learning to love the Midwest, though.
Yeah.
Except the winter.
Actually, there are some things about winter that are better here.
Okay, yeah, for sure. With those characters, it is a little bit of a letdown because they don't have funny names like everyone else. That kind of ticks me off. Like Slippy Toe is a fun name. Peppy Hair.
I don't.
Do they have last names?
Do they have last names? Is it Mayu
Kitsune,
and then like Fran Sharpay Poodle? I
don't think I saw
Fran's
the
like
manual.
some
I don't remember.
Yeah, Fran's some sort of like luxury French dog, so I don't know what their last names would be. But you do bring up something where like there's not as much personality in Star Fox 2.
Yeah. There are though. I think through the gameplay, there are some pretty cool moments where like I think it's more a emergent gameplay, you could say, but like for one, just like when you're taking out ships and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, the carrier is gonna hit them with the planet blaster or whatever, and you're like, oh no. But then also when you beat a couple things and Andross is like, all right, well, I gotta send the big guns out at you, or like I love the little moments when you go into those dog fights where they do the little bring when they like fly on the screen. Like those are little like kind of cinematic moments, and like those characters kind of add to it. But yeah, like the characters themselves, like they don't have as much character, I guess you could say. Some of the voice clips in the end.
You're not dogfighting with the rest of your team. You're picking two characters and you're switching between them depending on how damaged or not damaged or play style you want to have.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're fighting with them and they're like, oh, get this guy off me. Oh, what are you doing, Fox? Like they're not quipping with you. They're just kind of your backup for when you finish a mission and you're really damaged and you can't make it back to the Great Fox for healing.
It's kind of a cool way to do the life system, though.
Role.
Like,
it is really cool, and like, it is interesting to have different types of R wings. One's built for defense.
The designs are cool,
like speed, attack, and I don't even know if we ever get R wings that aren't blue, because the way it works for Star Fox 2 is like there's 3 different types of ships. There's 6 characters, so there's a red R-wing as well. You get your regular blue R-wing for some characters, and some characters have like red R-wings. And I'm like, whoa, does that even come back? Like, because by the time you get 64, like the R-wing is canonized as having like a gray and blue color scheme to it. So going back to Star Fox 2 and being like, oh shit, these things could be red. Like gray and red R-wings. Like it's so interesting looking back and on one of the more iconic Nintendo designs and being like, whoa, there's a different color for them.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense like to make them more recognizable when you're actually like trying to shoot or save them, or like not shoot them and save them in 64. But yeah, like those designs do stick out as like way cooler, and that just made me think too about just some of the I don't know what's the right word, like the UI design of like the menus, like those just have a really cool like futuristic vibe to it too in both the games. I wanted to actually second your thought that you said way in the beginning too, is that in both of these games, all the games really it gets more unique, I guess, in 64, but Andross is like a pretty simple boss. It's kind of fun, but yeah, it's not the most exciting of all the bosses in the game. I did want to open the floor if there was anything else you wanted to say about Star Fox 64, because that's the reason why we're here. And I know
I'm not on the 64 episode, which is fine. So I'll just get my one prevailing thought about 64 out of the way.
Sure.
Which is I am terrified by some of the things that happen in Star Fox 64.
Okay.
Because it plays with scale on a way that is like really like ripping in a scary sense for me. Like, we talk about Andross being a bit of a jobber, and that's fine. When you are in the last stage of Venom and you're shooting down the tube and you get to the green like acid infinite stage that has no no tangibility. You're just in nothingness. And Andross's 3D polygon face takes up the entire screen, and he laughs at you, and you feel like you're nothing but a gnat compared to the size of Andross. I'm like, Jesus Christ, it's so scary, like that relationship of scale. And there's a lot of that goes on in Star Fox 64, because like when you're in the I can't remember half the names of the levels, so forgive me, but like when you're the R-Wing submarine and you're in the underwater world, everything is so much bigger than you, and it's so dark, and you can't see what's going on, and like you just don't know what's there.
Wow, yeah.
And more than anything else, it's the hidden warp from Sector Y, I think it is, or the Android Belt. It feels like you are transcending space-time in a horrifically trippy way.
What happens there? I don't know if I've experienced that one. I've tried to hit a bunch of them, but
I'm gonna vamp for a bit while I try and look it up. Because it's one of the warps where it's so. Yeah, it's the Sector X warp route, and I'm about to drop it in the chat so you start going through the warp zone, and the sense of scale becomes like impenetrable. You're flying directly into like a blinding supernova, as everything around you is so much larger than the R-Wing. And it's a lot of that stuff in Star Fox 64 just like it terrifies me. Like the sense of scale is overwhelming.
Oh, I like.
And
yeah,
the fact that they did all this on the N64 again, like we've been talking about Star Fox 64, amazing game, absolutely amazing game. But like, wow, were they? And I'm watching the footage back right now. Like the enemies within the warp zone, they're all TV static. It's so alien and disturbing and trippy.
Oh my gosh.
And none of it feels real.
I've not seen this stage. No, this is wild. Yeah,
it's crazy, man. It's crazy. So there's Star Fox 64 is unbelievable game, just absolutely unbelievable game. There's a reason why they could never top it. You know? Yeah,
it is like. It's interesting because it feels like the step with like the game is like they make it like it's the easiest one so far, I think, like to get into, and that's due to like the way they implement difficulty in that one is so unique compared to the rest. But like being able to do that, like having the difficulty almost adjust to how you play the game is really clever, but then also using that same way of progressing through the game by doing certain things or doing well or not as well in certain levels, but also adding in stuff like this, the secrets, just really makes it's like, I guess that adds to kind of how it's scary too, just in that like you don't really, when you start, you just see the map of that game, and it doesn't say like here's route 1, here's route 2, here's route 3, and that always kind of intimidated me when I was younger and I like tried the game out, because I'm like I was like, how do I go to these other planets and stuff? Like just in that, it's like you just find out, no, you just got to start playing and figure it out. That was always crazy.
It's like, not to just like be my like hey, tomorrow I'm dyeing my hair because my wife wants me to, and there's going to be a whole lot of grays that are getting covered up, man. It's going to be great. Like, I'm dyeing my hair like black blue, so it's not going to look very different. It's just the grays are going to be gone. But like, if you weren't there for the change between 2D and 3D, like you can't conceptualize. You can't conceptualize how 3D felt limitless in a way that it wasn't. Like nowadays, if a warp zone like this was done nowadays, there would be so much more fidelity to make it feel like a real place. Whereas in Star Fox 64, when you go to a new planet, like you don't know what it's gonna be because it's so new. Like the idea of being in a third dimension in that place is so new, and you get planets that are so empty in very alien and disturbing ways. Like the magma level, it's just waves and tidal waves and columns of like volatile magma, and that's unsettling. Like that's not a comfortable feeling to fly around. Like to fly it's and to have that be like a third dimension thing,
right?
And they don't have the technology to make that feel fully realized. So there's a bit of like, this is all imperceivable in a strange way,
reality, or not?
It's not realistic yet. So there's this inability to grasp onto things, and instead, when 75% of your screen becomes a tidal wave of magma, you're like, shit, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like this is unsettling in ways I can't speak of, and that that unsettling type of feeling that doesn't continue on throughout time, because we can iterate on that better. We can make that magma world feel more like a living thing. We can make it feel like there was a reason for this to be a volatile magma world. There could be all sorts of different fidelity that makes it feel like a more tangible place that you're in. But like back in the N64, when 3D was new, another thing I'll describe for a future episode way down the years. In Banjo-Kazooie, the second level of Banjo-Kazooie, it's an island, and there's a skybox that shows an ocean outside. But like, in 1998, you didn't know how far that skybox was.
Oh yeah.
Like, and you fly in that game, and so like, there's a fear of like, how far can I fly? Like, how far can I reasonably fly if I'm flying around this island? Because you don't know. Like, the sense of scale and the grasp of what a 3D render area isn't there yet, and that's what makes Star Fox 64 sometimes just terrifying. Like, space, in a very strange way, space has never felt more infinite than it has in Star Fox 64. Space in Star Fox 64 feels like it could go on for a literal concept of infinity. And like, you take a game like Starfield for Bethesda, that game feels tight and controlled and confined, and you know where you're going to go in that. Star Fox 64, you have no idea how far a thing goes. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think that goes to, like, we talk about a lot of like the idea of like certain things, like certain games, like whether they hold up, or we even talked about how this series evolved, and like they took things that worked from previous games and iterated on them and improved them. But like, I think, you know, with certain new things, like obviously comes like really awesome experiences, but there, even with each individual game, like especially the ones that are like successful at like conveying whatever they're trying to convey, is that like some of them have a very special like particular element to them that like is lost amongst like the other games. That's how I always feel about, like, we're big Legend of Zelda fans, but I always think like, while they like iterated and like change and like enhance certain experiences, like there are certain like very like specific things conveyed in some of like the early games that like can almost never be replicated. And I think that has you mentioned like the time. I think a lot of that has to do with also like being there and experiencing like Star Fox 64, like a game like that at that time when you had previously not experienced games like it before. I think like that some of those early 3D games of just being like you can't really like the scope of them going from this to this was almost unimaginable, which is like that's also a little less exciting now as time goes on, you know, as each new
you can't there will never be another shift like that.
Yeah,
it's just like there's no fourth dimension. Like I don't know how anyone ever captures that again.
A meta game,
I'm so glad I got to be there to experience that shift.
Oh yeah, and that's what this show is like all about for sure.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's exactly. We're not going back just to like talk about N64 games, but like you have to like put yourself in that time and in that place, and like any amount of context. Like gaming is just art, and all art is context. There's a reason why these things were so exciting and different and new and enthralling, because there was a time when this was ungraspable.
That sort of scariness you were talking about with Andros, I think some of those vibes like even start on the SNES, because like that does happen. Like the boss fights in those aren't particularly difficult, but it is crazy. Like you're in a lot of them. You're in the first one, in the first Star Fox game. You know, you're flying through these tunnels, and then you come out of a tube, and you're in this weird, like it's this
acid trip.
What is
zone.
This zone? What is this space? And then at the end of Star Fox 2, a similar type like acid trip zone, and it's like where are we fighting? Like what is happening?
It still hits a little for when I'm playing Star Fox 1 and 2, like the getting out of the tube into Andros being bigger than you by a lot in a trippy zone with no tangibility to it. Like it still unnerves me, like that lack of definition.
Yeah, we still have another game to like really for you to like go into more and talk about. But what's your main takeaway from the SNES games?
I think it would be really cool if they made another Star Fox game and like, but took more from maybe these ones.
Yeah, you were saying just before.
Like I was saying,
Star Fox
I was playing
2.
some Star Fox 2, and I was like, I'd love to see another one with this like real time element that's like more like modernized. I don't know. I really like that aspect of it.
That's how I feel too, like that, and also like I said, that feeling of just like switching to your mech to your ship would be really cool. I'm sure there is a game where you do that, but
yeah, I was thinking I gotta maybe look into some indie games.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I haven't gotten very far in it, but I would throw out EX Zodiac.
Okay.
I picked that up on Winter Steam Sale, and I played like the first level real quick. It's very much it's made to be SNES Star Fox 1.
This looks cool. Okay.
Oh wow.
And
hell yeah. So okay.
I can't endorse it because I didn't really play it more than like,
looks
10 minutes,
cool
but it's so obviously Star Fox 1. It's trying to be Star Fox 1. It's not trying to hide it.
You are witnessing a new technology. The first and only game powered by the Super FX microchip. Why go to the next level when you can go light years beyond? You are Fox McCloud in Star Fox, only for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
We gotta say thanks again to Connor for coming on.
Thank you, Connor.
Coming in times of need elsewhere, able to make time for the.
I don't know what Connor is trying to promote right now because I'm not sure, but just be on. I'll let you know there when stuff like that happens. That needs to be promoted. But Jay, I think this is like you're on a streak right now. I think.
And my wife earlier today was like, "You on another podcast?" And I was like, "Yeah."
I'm sorry we're occupying so much of your time, but
yeah, it's fine. I know this. I've been on a bit of a streak, and I don't think I have anything scheduled after this for a while. So
no, I got you, but I do have you down for something. But we'll
talk. My agent, your agent.
If you need a break, we can talk about that too. But
no, I'm so fine.
It's been awesome. This has been a great run. We have a great. We've mentioned it before, but the Gooniverse, which now I've decided I like to call it, has the Flashback 64 Gooniverse. No, it's been great having you on, but I guess you had a new video out in our last episode.
I have a new video out. I don't know when this episode drops, so I don't think I'll have a new video by the time this episode
we have a new
drops.
one for this already because sorry, go ahead.
I just put out the Final Fantasy IV episode in my playing every Final Fantasy game kinda series on my YouTube, youtube.com/IdolismJ, IDOLISMJ. That's a huge video.
Mm-hmm.
It's 1 hour 47 minutes, and like I hate to tell you, every video in the Final Fantasy series, they're only getting bigger.
How could it not? Yeah,
they're only getting freaking like I'm working on the Final Fantasy V one on top of some smaller videos, but like the Final Fantasy V one, that's gonna be 2 hours. Final Fantasy VI, probably 2 hours plus. Like I know next year when I get to Final Fantasy V or Final Fantasy VII, I'm just expecting it to be like
oh my gosh.
So I'm working my ass off, but that's the newest one up. I've been hearing some great reviews from it. People love it. So if you want to learn more about Final Fantasy or any of the other just harebrained video game stuff I make video content for, youtube.com/IdolismJ, IDOLISMJ.
I've been really liking those videos. I haven't played any of the ones you have. I know there are some of the early ones I really want to play. I'm very curious about 4 you just did, and 6 are like the big ones, right? But I've...
Yep, that's for America. Yeah, for America.
Right, yeah. So I have, like, in whatever, the past handful of years, been checking off some Final Fantasy games on my list. And it's just a series I'm more and more interested in as the years go on. And so, like, even though I haven't played any of the ones you've covered, like, I really like the sort of retrospective on them that I eventually plan to get into. Like, it gets me more excited about it. And then I'm also very excited for you to cover, like, I've played 7 and 9 and 12, I think. So I'm, like, excited for you to cover some of those too. And
I was talking about in my Discord, not my channel Discord, but like my fighting game team Discord today. 9 is the only Final Fantasy I know almost nothing about.
Okay.
I don't know anything about 9. I know it's Zidane. I know the crystals are back, TM, and like that's it. I don't know shit about 9. So everyone, all my friends are like, okay, we're gonna be tight-lipped.
Cool.
For the next couple years.
I won't say anything.
You don't know anything about 9. I know everything. I know a lot about all the other Final Fantasy games. I don't know shit about 9, and I've kept it that way for a long time.
Well, it's something I like a lot.
So whenever I get to 9, I'll be ready.
I like them a lot just as, like, I like this sort of thing, like, we're going through chronologically covering N64 games on my channel.
Yep.
I've been going through the Zelda series, and I just, like, there's something really cool about, or, like, even this episode, just seeing, like, you know, how things changed and what, like, you were even talking about in 4, like, how they took some of the best elements from the previous games and, like, kind of made, like, a super game out of that. I don't know. I think it's just really cool.
It's exactly what we're doing here. But, like, as I said at the jump, like, playing Star Fox 1 and 2 gives you such a fuller idea of why Star Fox 64 is the way it is. Like, if you just played Star Fox 64, you're like, oh, damn, this game's crazy. This is amazing. If you play 1 and 2, you're like, well, shit, there's almost no original ideas in 64. It's taking everything from 1 and 2 and just, like, super polishing it to give it another gun.
Yeah, before it could be almost like, oh, man, I can't believe they made this. And then when you play them, it's like, oh, like, if they didn't make something as great as this, it's like what were they doing, you know? Because they've been working towards it. Well, yeah. So yeah, go check out your channel is awesome. I'm loving those videos. McKenna, do you want to promote anything? What do you got going on right now? You're still working on the thing.
I am. I
Can't say
feel like
it yet.
I mean, I've mentioned it before.
The longest tease.
I know it's a really. It's getting closer. I'm doing the
working on it.
I'm doing a Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom thing, but
Zelda.
Yeah.
Ooh.
But we're
doing Zelda. Well, I'm covering Twilight Princess on my channel. We're covering on the Zelda Dungeon YouTube channel the Twilight Princess manga. We've been reading that, which has been fun. We've only got one out. We've got to record the next one.
We'll have another one out soon.
We're getting there. We're working on it, but it's a lot of Twilight Princess we're talking about.
Yeah,
so.
I think I'm gonna. You're like playing through the dungeons on
my channel.
Yeah. I'm thinking about maybe playing some of the side content on my channel.
You're gonna do the like cozy farming sim stuff. You're gonna go fishing, herd the goats.
Yeah.
All that good stuff. In terms of our stuff, let's see. We've got... Well, I want to say thanks. Someone did go give us a 5-star rating and review. I don't like asking for those all the time. But someone did. Someone was trying to offset the bad reviews we got, which did, since we don't have a lot of reviews, it brought us from 4.6 to 4.7. So if you're listening now and you're like thinking, you know, it's like, oh, could I really make a difference? My 5-star review?
You can.
You can make a difference. So I don't know. I guess that helps us if we have a better review on iTunes or something. But Otherwise, we have pins now on our merch store, and they turned out pretty decent. We got one, and it looks pretty good. I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, we posted a pic on Instagram.
Got a cool pic on Instagram with McKenna's new light, so go check out that light. We'll post the no, we're not going to promote the light. Otherwise,
sponsor me now.
We're on Blue Sky. We have a Discord where we do game night. Oh, we're gonna.
Yeah.
I don't know. We will have done probably another Star Fox game night. We're playing Star Fox 64 multiplayer with our buds on there, and the first time we played it was a lot of fun. And we're gonna obviously talk about the multiplayer in our next episode, so that'd be really cool. But yeah, come join our Discord. Follow us on Blue Sky. And with that, we're out. I guess we'll see everybody when we talk about Star Fox 64. All right, great mission. Something like that.